So I grew up in Assam, in various places of Assam, where the best tea comes from. And I never settled down in any township. My father will get transferred. And so our lives at that point of time, it sounds like prehistoric time, was much simpler. Where do you study? Which school do you go? These were not the biggest concerns in life. What is convenient? Go to the neighborhood school. But first it was a missionary school. Then it was China war. Think of the time. And we were taken out of the school, spent 6 months in original village of my parent, then another 6 months in another location. So I did not study for 1 full year. And in between, there was worry whether I will get another English medium school. They started teaching local languages, which is vernacular language. First it was Assamese. Suddenly my mother felt, no, it's not going well, switch to Bengali. It's not same language, by the way, but life was like that. So another tutor came, taught us Bengali, okay? And next thing is we are now transferred to a city called Guwahati, and then the neighborhood school is a Bengali school. Okay, I was due for promotion to 2nd standard, in the kindergarten level. And my mother thought, no, take him 4th standard. Oh my God, damn, there was. So I became disadvantaged right from the beginning. I was the youngest, smallest in the class, and it was a constant life of a struggle to keep up with the bigger boys and girls. Anyway, later on, I realized the disadvantages. Suddenly, I nearly managed to do what is in those days 10th standard, reasonable. But 11th and 12th, it was non-existent. It was 1 year of pre-university, and at that point, I nearly flunked. Because still I was disadvantaged. So my choice of life was getting narrower. If you get a 3rd division, nobody cares about you. But my choice became very difficult. I felt that if I had to do science, it has to be, in that point of time, the college that I finally went in, which was pretty good. If it will be only zoology, otherwise, I quit science. I'll go journalism at that point. And I should have done that. I could have been earning much more, actually. Anyway, I did that. Zoology, nobody really was taking in those days, and it was a disadvantage. But looking back, I realized that it was a very good decision. That college never had a record of giving an honors, earning an honors. In those days, it was pretty tough, challenging. I went there, worked against all the disadvantages, focus. I still struggled with my handwriting, speed of writing. Something went wrong in the early stages. And out of that, believe it or not, there was no record of anyone getting an honors degree there. I topped the entire university and the entire state. So everybody is surprised, okay? But in the process, I also learned the value of you can do almost anything if you make up your mind. This is one. Secondly, actually don't undermine what is going around in that place. And I will come to that point of early training. So now from that point, I thought it was easy to get into university. It was not unlike this lot of master's degree. No, only entire state had 40 seats, 20 seats in 1 or 2 university. I was getting easy because I was the topper. But somebody said it's much better to be worst amongst the best than to be best amongst the worst. So that was a kind of guiding principle. We thought we should go to another university and then try out. Banaras was a good university, excellent geology department at that point. I came there, there's a long story. You know, luck, what kind of luck I needed? I got a letter on the very last date. Within 48 hours, I should get admission, or else the admission, I will not get it. My mother came to see me off at the railway station, and I could not board the railway coach because it was overcrowded In those days, there were no railings on the windows of the second class. They tried to push me inside through the window. It did not work. Okay, so gone. First evening, you could not make it. Next evening, we again on the same train and try again. There is nothing like you will get a reservation or anything, right? Finally, there was a military coach, and somehow it took pity on me. He said, "Kahan jana hai? Where do you want to go?" So I said, "Idhar Banaras, Mughal Sarai, something like that." Baith ja. Right? That saved my life. And I came. I was rather, disheveled after 48 hours and I probably missed the admission date. Now I recall I went with freshly coming off of the train in a very bad shape and went to see the head of the department. The office people say he's late by 1 day. And that time we had a fantastic professor, M.S. Kanungo. He was a biochemist. In those days he was very well known. And I started I got the letter late, I missed the train. I started my story. And looking at me and my overall attire maybe, he said, admit him. That was how you get through. But anyway, it was good time I had, and we quickly finished master's program and then joined Professor Lakhotia. Many of you know him. So Professor Lakhotia he joined in 1976 and we joined in 1977 within 6-7 months. He had an empty room, and that is where we entered as a research student. And that is how my first job as a research student was to lift the air conditioner, take it down to another stair, and there will be a kind of cart coming from the engineering section. It has to be repaired. So this is my first task as a researcher. Second task is we said that the room is not looking good, let us paint it. So we painted the room. So as if I learned one thing, if you want to make your lab, you will make it, isn't it? Who else? Who else? How is it that you expect somebody else will give you a prepared lab? So this became ingrained in us. We saw Lakhotia. It's not that he brainwashed, but towards the end of our PhD, I was somehow convinced that, I don't know, why should I need a postdoctoral time? I want to be independent and I should be ready. Because of the thing that my mother did to me, I was very young. So by the time I was passing MSc, I was just 20. And in 21st year of my life, I am already in a PhD program. I spent a long time, 5 years. So yet it was 26, I graduate, and in about a few months here and there. On this 27th year, I moved to University of Indore then, that was named like this. So at 27, you think you are ready, and there was and all our fellow colleagues were going, and they have most of my own, senior, junior. Many of them are professors back in the US. But this is a decision. When I go back, I keep on wondering what were the motivation. And motivation is, as you said rightly, it's not for the money, not for anything, but I wanted to do it in India. I cannot explain you any further. I'm not against anyone going outside, but me, I want to do it here, right? This is the motivation. And I guess when you come back as well, that should be, you rightly said, that should be the only motivation. You cannot say, oh, he gave me a good package, that is why it's at the long run, after all the, initial grant, everything, you will question yourself, should you have at all returned if you didn't mean to return it in the first place? Anyway, then I took a sabbatical time at German Cancer Research Center, and I thought that is how you do science. You set up your lab, you take a break. That was the tradition in my point of view. So it was a sabbatical year. A lot of people consider it as a postdoctoral year. I said, no, there's a difference between postdoc and a sabbatical break. It was in the mind, I was still 32 by the time, I'm taking a sabbatical year. But I did not do great deal of work because my mindset was changed by the time. I have spent about several years as independent investigator. But what this time gave me was to nature in the manner they ran their science. I'm a deep admirer of German administration, governance, their structure, their long-term thinking. It's wonderful to be there. But then, whatever I did in Indore led me to the point that Shashi said that there was another story going on in the country. That was IITs wanted to set up biology, and it was brewing, it was in the air, but nobody was coming forward. Suddenly there was a donor by the name Arun Shourie, a member of parliament, and every member of parliament receives 2 crore rupees per annum. In 6 years of Rajya Sabha member, he gets 12 crore, and he pledged it. It is a long story. He had reasons. His own son was spastic. He felt for, and for with that pious and with a very truly philanthropic, it's not his pocket money, but he pledged entire MP Let's fund. This is the rarest event of MP Let's getting funded for one cause. So they did it, and somehow amongst the group that was also Vijay was key person, Balram was there, was Lakotia, and several others. They thought they need somebody to come there and start it. And my only qualification was I did it in the hardest of all places, in a state university. He should be the best guy. Anyway, it was by invitation that I went there, and then completely made the move. In all through these, right from my early college days, the one undercurrent of things that went on was the fly. So how even in a remote place, back in remote part of Assam, I had a fantastic teacher once he was teaching us geology dissection, and he said, in local language, though English, he said, take some notes. All right, we are taking notes. What? Take several spoonful of gram flour. Okay, yes, we did. Take half a banana. Yes. Take 2 spoonful of honey. Yes. Then squeeze a bit of orange juice. Yes. Make a paste. Yes. Then say taste it. All right. If it is tasty, now I'm giving you this. You will do of your own at your home. I'm giving you vials, glass vials, and keep it on the window of your houses. We are all in single-storied houses, and overnight and next morning put a plug. You would have trapped Drosophila. In those days, our LPG gases were not on, so it used to be what do you say, coal oven. That the kitchen used to be warmer than the house. So keep it in the kitchen, and after 5 days, bring it to me. And we went there, lo behold, the larvae were crawling, and we dissected, and in that place we saw polytene chromosome, right? So there you go. I mean, so many years back, I was only 17, 18 somewhere, and it stayed with me. Banaras incidentally had a fantastic Drosophila school, so I entered, and the rest goes on. So coming back to mentors, one of the biggest part of being in that school was nobody was restricting you. I hardly ever discussed my research project with my mentor, Professor Lakotia. The nearest that he came to ask me was, we discussed something, he asked that question, Pradip, have you done that? I said, yes, means I will do. He asked me the same question on Wednesday. For me, that was devastating, because how could you ask the question twice in the same week? I said that, okay, when I'm done, I will come back to you. This was kind of not a very polite reply, right? But that was the nearest thing we were doing, because independence was granted. And they used to be patient, and I was deeply interested in developmental genetics. I was reading Peter Bryant, Susan Bryant, all those stories of cell lineages, transplantation, and then it went on. So I could develop an idea about developmental biology and became a self-taught developmental biologist. And this was the model. What do you do? And that fascination stayed all through my own interest. I did diversify a little bit in terms of question, but the organism remains same. I'll come back to it later. Now, only recently I came across this book. I suggest that if you possible, please buy this, read it, very fascinating. written not necessarily by a biologist, but natural history of innovation. And he digs up, this author, Stephen Johnson, digs up 7 or 5 principles of innovation. And amongst them, one thing he says was that of a slow hunch. Is it possible that Darwin had a slow hunch? It's not an eureka moment that you get and then you understand the whole process. It is at your back of your mind. And if we train our mind, we will get a bit of our slow hunch. So the slow hunch was that everything in cancer is actually development going awry. Back in Indore, this was very challenging thing of those time to do in those days, not today of course. So the one slow hunch was whatever developmental priming takes place, there are 2 compartments, and anterior, posterior engrailed is the gene that is expressed, and during the process of tumorigenesis, they will not lose the memory of their original specification. So that is the take home. Anyway, I kept on doing this research, and then this was the time when I was called, and then it was 2001, 13th September, that as a special day because formally the department was acknowledged by the Senate. And come 2003 October, the building was inaugurated. Now today we are reasonably large department with some guys have also left by now. This slide is little dated, and new ones have also come in. And we represent these areas of research, and we are growing very carefully, very, very slowly. Unlike our fellow departments who have quickly recruited, I think in terms of recruitment, the good advice is please go slow. In those who are already in your own department, don't rush for the next recruitment unless you are very, very convinced. Anyway, one question that bothered us, next 1 minute, I will explain that, is that do you think if there is an oncogenic mutation, all cells start becoming tumorous? Answer is no, most of them are lost. So this is a good news that our homeostasis system, yesterday Judy was talking about extrusion, apoptosis. In fact, all of them, most of the time they undergo extrusion and apoptosis. Now, this is the question, why some are extruded and some are becoming tumor. And I will not go into the details. The answer that we received was, if you are terminally committed developmental state, for example, it is time to become the wing. These are the epithelium that becomes wing eventually. Then that area is spared. Somehow, no matter how many hits go there, they are not transforming. Likewise, something committed to become the eye refuses to transform, right? But we could reverse the process, and we realize that should you lose the specification of the wing, alternatively, specification of the eye, you can kind of transform them. So we titled the paper, I mean, this is not the title, but this, I love this picture. You make tumors, but vestigial domain will not transform unless you have made a special effort. So this became the kind of model that they return to a primitive cell state before they can become tumors. Now, from the same book of Stephen Johnson, there's a term that I first came across, and that was known as exaptation. Have you heard it? Exaptation was a kind of extension of adaptation, but this adaptation is very distinct. There is a process, features, and function which was meant for this, but got adapted for another purpose. The feather of Archaeopteryx was an example that became good for flight in evolutionary terms. So what if developmental mechanisms are actually adapted for tumorigenesis? All right? And but let us say, is there some lessons that I wanted to just leave a thought with you? I have worked in India, and I I have always wondered what are barriers of work in India. One of the real barrier is we ourselves. We have never written about what is the character of the Indian. There is a commonality of amongst Indian that really shared across the country, right? And very few people have started writing about it. Indians are writing just now about themselves, right? So one of the writer I recommend that for every beginner, please read a bit about India, the Jugaad innovation, we are like that only, okay? Connecting the dots. They are full of writers. Please pick up anything written by India, about India, including good quality books like Gurucharan Das, etc. It really illustrates what is your place in this country, how it has changed. This is a realization that is necessary for you to succeed. Amongst the many quote, I quote him because it's better to quote somebody than to say it is my understanding. Indians take to faction like fish in water, right? This is such a quintessential Indian character that if you want to be successful, you have to stay out of this, our absolute common fault, right? What was the consequence on me? I could barely speak to many colleagues simply because they bring a lot of negativism. We just talk, oh, he is bad, he is good, I did not get it, you know, it never works. And I carry all this, why I should carry all your experience as a negative, and you want to enrich me by telling me all the bad stories that you failed or it didn't work. I think this is where you protect yourself as a young investigator. Find I think Ron said in one meeting, 3 people you need in your life. One is a hero, another is mentor. Was it you, Ron? I don't know. In one meeting, he said, another is your friend. Friend is someone, that point someone defined, that is someone in whose room you can go and kick the chair, it bursts out, putting all your anger. But what is a mentor? Mentors are missing in this country. Hero, please find your hero. He may not be around you. My heroes in field, I do not discuss it now, but there are heroes I follow. So save yourself from this, and my final slide is this. Do you feel as if you are starting, you are old or something? But this was a quote taken from someone who wrote about India. The world is flat. Have you read this book? It is again a must for all of us to understand we are living in a new India, not the same one that I lived some times back. It is a new India. And that is wonderfully written, somebody's quote. It is that every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must move faster than the lion or it will not survive, okay? Every morning, a lion wakes up and it knows it must move faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. Life of a lion is not at all easy, nor is the life of the gazelle, right? It does not matter if you are lion or the gazelle. When sun comes up, you better be moving. I'm sorry, it is cut here. And when I thought you better be running, right? So it doesn't matter where you are. To survive, to sustain, you got to go running. I'm very happy to talk to you later. Okay.